Prabhu. Today we will be reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Nothing. This book, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, is a special book.
Should we do a translation or someone?
It's up to you.
Est-ce que quelqu'un...
Who cannot understand English?
Qui ne comprend pas l'anglais?
Christian Baptiste, tu veux bien faire une traduction?
So, this book contains the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It's a pastime of Lord Chaitanya because his activities are not ordinary. The activities of the Lord are called Nitya Lila, or eternal pastimes. And as opposed to everyone else in the material world, our activities are due to our karma, due to activities that we performed in the past. And in the previous lives, in many lives, we performed karmic activities which produce reactions. And so in this life we are reaping what we sowed in the past. There's some good and there's some bad. This is the case with everyone. But in the case of the Supreme Lord, when he comes to this world, he's not under the influence of the material energy. There's no karma. So his activities are called pastimes, or lila, pleasure. Yeah, for his own pleasure, he acts. And it's beneficial for us to hear about the activities of the Lord, and it's also important to hear about the activities of the Lord's pure devotees, or eternal associates. So, we are reading from the Madhya Lila. Madhya Lila means the middle pastimes of the Lord. The Lord's pastimes are described as Adi Lila, or the beginning, early pastimes, Madhya Lila, the middle pastimes, and then Antya Lila, the later pastimes. It's divided like that. So we are reading from Madhya Lila chapter 7, the Lord's tour of South India. So, we stopped, last week we read, the Lord came to he's in South India, and he met with one Brahmin there, named Kurma. So we'll begin from there. In one village, there was a Vedic Brahmana named Kurma. He invited Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his home with great respect and devotion. This Brahmin brought Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his home. He washed his lotus feet, and with his family members, they all drank that water, the water that washed the Lord's feet. She's enjoying Chaitanya Charitamrita.
She's enjoying it all.
Anyway, continue. That Kurma Brahman, with great affection and respect, made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eat all kinds of food. And after that, the remnants of the Lord's prasadam were shared by all members of his family. The Brahman, his wife, they cooked, prepared nice prasadam for the Lord, and when he was finished eating, they then ate his remnants. We call the remnants Mahaprasadam. It's like here at the temple. The prasadam that is offered to the Lord on the altar, the deity, when the plates come off the altar, that prasadam we call it Mahaprasadam, as opposed to the rest of the prasadam. I mean, they're both prasadam. Prasadam means mercy, but it's special when it comes off the Lord's plate. So, then the Brahmin began to pray to the Lord. He said, "O my Lord, your lotus feet are meditated upon by Lord Brahma. And those very lotus feet have now come into my house. So, it is my great fortune. My great fortune cannot be described." He is appreciating how lucky he is that the Lord's come to his house. You can imagine if Krishna came to your house and came inside, you'd be overjoyed, overwhelmed. So, the Brahmin says, "Today, my family, my birth, all my riches have all been glorified. And then the Brahmin begged Lord Chaitanya. He said, "My dear Lord, kindly show me your favor and let me go with you, because I can no longer tolerate the waves of misery caused by a materialistic life." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied to the Brahmin, "Don't talk like that. Don't speak like this again. Better you stay here, stay at home. Remain at home and chant the holy name of Krishna always." Prabhupada gives a little purport to this verse. He says, "It is not advisable in this present age of Kali to leave one's family suddenly, because people are not trained as proper brahmacharis and grihastas. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised the Brahmin Don't be so eager to leave, to give up your family life. Better you stay at home with them and become purified by chanting Hare Krishna mantra regularly, under the direction of a spiritual master. This is the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In traditional Vedic culture, ancient Vedic culture, the system was at the age of 5 years old, boys were sent to the ashram of a spiritual master, where they would be trained as brahmacharis for 25 years, actually 20 years, until they were 25. And at that time, if they so desired, if the boy wanted to get married, which was the majority of them, the majority of young men will get married, then they would take permission from the spiritual master, and then they become grihastas, married. And then, after maintaining, they have children, maintaining the family for 25 years, then at 50, the husband and wife would leave home in care of the eldest son. And they would go on pilgrimage to the holy places for a few years. In India, there are many holy places because many incarnations of the Lord appeared there. You could go visit the place where Lord Rama appeared, where Krishna appeared, where Lord Nrsingadeva appeared. All the incarnations, well, not all, but there are unlimited incarnations. But this is a special feature of India. And so there are many holy places. And people, any given time, today even, there are thousands of Indians who are on pilgrimage. Either family or single men, they're going on pilgrimage, going to the holy places, and they would get their meals at the different temples, just whatever Krishna provides. And then after a few years of living like that, going from one holy place to another, they would go back home. And when they went back home, then the husband would ask the wife's permission. Can I go now? Can I take sannyas and leave home? And if she says, sure, you may go, then he leaves. If she doesn't give him permission, then he stays for a little while longer. And then he'll ask again. So, but that was his system. And you can see there was a support system in the greater society. They could go to the holy places and take prasadam as they're traveling. This doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. But in India it's like that. Therefore I once read a book where one Chinese man said, if anybody wants to know religion, you must go to India. Then you will see how people, it's a way of life. Their whole life is centered around, whereas it's different in the West. So, Prabhupada is saying here that if this principle of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is followed, chanting and staying at home and chanting and getting purified, if this is followed by everyone, then there's no need for anyone to take sannyas. But because it's not being followed, therefore there's a need for sannyas. Srila Prabhupada was a sannyas. He took sannyas, and we have His Holiness Janananda Maharaj here. He's a sannyas. And the sannyas, his business is to preach. In this verse, in the next verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises everyone to become an ideal householder by offenselessly chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and teaching the same principles to everyone living. So now we come to this verse. This is a very famous verse by which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke to the Kuma Brahman. He says, Yare dakot thare kaho Krishna upadesh. Amar agya guru hoy thare ek desh. Srila Prabhupada would cite this verse so many times, probably 100 times. Because this is the instruction, one of the instructions of Mahaprabhu. It means we should instruct everyone to follow the teachings of Lord Krishna as they are given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And in this way, you become a spiritual master and liberate everyone in the land. But now, today, there's a scarcity of spiritual masters because people aren't following this purport. This is the sublime mission of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Many people come to us and inquire whether they have to give up their family life to join ISKCON. But that is not our mission. One can remain comfortable in his residence, but we simply request everyone to chant the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And if one is literate, in other words, if you can read, if one is literate, then he can read Bhagavad Gita as it is, and Srimad Bhagavatam. Then that'll be much better. But if you are illiterate, you can't read, you can chant. Everybody can chant. And you can achieve perfection just by chanting. But if you're literate, as Prabhupada says, then you can take advantage of these books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. These works, these books, are now available in an English translation, and they are done very authoritatively to appeal to all classes of men. When the time Prabhupada wrote this, it was only English. And he wrote his books in English, because he came to preach to the English-speaking world. But then, as the books came out, he instructed his disciples, now we have to translate them into other languages. And now, today, last I heard, Prabhupada's books are available in over 50 different languages. So, this is the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These books are now done very authoritatively to appeal to all classes of men. Instead of living engrossed in material activities, people throughout the world should take advantage of this movement and chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra at home with their families. One should also refrain from sinful activities such as illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. Out of these 4 items, illicit sex is very sinful. So every person, every man should get married. Every woman especially should get married. If the women outnumber the men, then some men can accept more than one wife. In that way, there'll be no prostitution. If some men can marry more than one wife, then illicit sex will be stopped. During the time of Krishna, and actually even in India just a few 100 years ago, for instance, this was going on, polygamy. In America, there's one religious movement called Mormons. And they were also advocating polygamy. But then the government, it was going on for 100 years. And then the American government put a stop to it. They clamped down on it, so now it still goes on, but it's what you call done secretly, undercover. But the government, by stopping the polygamy, as everybody knows, prostitution is huge in America. It's huge. The Srila Prabhupada says if that is permitted, then prostitution will stop. Then one can also produce nice food preparations to offer Krishna from grains, fruits, flowers, and milk. Why should one indulge in unnecessary meat eating and maintaining horrible slaughterhouses? What is the use of smoking and drinking alcohol, coffee, and tea? People are already intoxicated by material enjoyment, and if they indulge in further intoxication, then what chance is there for them for self-realization? Yeah, this meat eating is a big one. Even today, I once read how many thousands of cows are slaughtered daily just for people to eat. It's not necessary. The earth provides so many different kinds of food. The human being, especially if we're talking about human beings, there is no need for them to, but people have developed a taste and they can't give it up. But it, as I said, there are consequences for what we do. Consequences, reactions. And there people are acting whimsically and irresponsible. It's the norm, it's normal, right? Meat eating is normal. In fact, they think vegetarianism is abnormal. I mean, vegetarianism is increasing. When Prabhupada came to the West, there were no vegetarian restaurants in America. Not even one. It was a meat-eating culture. But by Prabhupada's preaching, gradually vegetarian restaurants started popping up here and there. Now there are many around the world. Around the world. But previously, I remember even before I joined, I wanted to become a vegetarian. You go to a restaurant and ask them, and tell them, I'm a vegetarian, what do you have that I could eat? They would look at you like you're strange. All they would have is some, they have nothing practically. It was difficult. But now, pretty much all the restaurants in America, they'll have a section on their menu for vegetarians. So they've made some progress. But vegetarian restaurants, now there are many. I actually used to be involved in that. For many years, I had my own restaurant, a vegetarian restaurant. And, sometimes people would say, how can you do a restaurant and not serve meat? He says, I'm doing it. You don't have to eat meat, But the way people have been educated, miseducated, they think they can't comprehend. Many of our devotees, when they join, and they went back home to visit their parents, they'll tell their parents, I'm a vegetarian now. The parents would look bewildered and say, what will you eat? What will you eat? I knew one boy, he was going to college, and while I was doing the restaurant, he came in looking for a job, and I hired him to wash dishes. And I began to talk to him about Krishna. And then eventually he wanted to join, he wanted to become a devotee. So I directed him to the temple. And he joined, and then he dropped out of college. He just dropped out. And then he went home to visit his father. And his father was living in one of the wealthiest places in California called Bel Air. Every house in Bel Air is worth millions. His father was a surgeon. A surgeon for all the movie stars. And so when he went home, he told me, he went home and his father was happy to see him. His father wasn't too worried that he dropped out of college. wasn't too upset that he became a devotee, which was unusual. But the father said, anyway, I just did groceries today and the refrigerator is stocked with food. So make yourself at home, get something to eat. He said, so I went to the refrigerator, there was bread. He said he started pulling out everything that he could eat. Bread and cheese, tomatoes, sprouts, lettuce, avocados, so many things. And his father is sitting down at the table watching him. And he made this big sandwich filled with, And just as he lifted the sandwich to go and take a bite, his father said to him, son, aren't you going to put anything on that sandwich? He said, what do you mean, anything? Look what's on it, I've got everything. He meant, aren't you going to put some meat on it? They have cold, they make sandwiches. Meat is for everything. So he said, look how much I've got here. I don't need to eat meat. But that's how they were. And even in India today, Maharaj was telling us a couple of days ago, India leads the world in slaughtering cows, exporting meat and leather, which is, it's such a shame. But when Prabhupada came west, meat eating there were no slaughterhouses in India. No slaughterhouses. It was illegal. Yes. But during Prabhupada's time with us, the Prime Minister of India at that time she was the first lady to become a Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi. And during her term as Prime Minister, she legalized slaughterhouses. And now it's rampant. So people have become so insensitive. As Maharaj was telling us in his class that everything from the cow is so beneficial for human beings, even the stool and urine. Plus, what to speak of the milk. Milk can be, you can make so many wonderful preparations, yogurt, cream, ghee. Ghee is the purest medium for cooking. So the cow is worth much more to human society, alive than dead. What to speak of when you kill the cow, the reactions. So these things will not go unnoticed. They're not going unnoticed. But because people are godless, they don't think there's anything wrong. They don't understand. So, the real purpose of human life is to attain self-realization, spiritual realization, and return home back to Godhead. That is the purpose of human life. So, the Krishna consciousness movement is trying to elevate human society to the perfection of life. And how to do that? That is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his instructions to the Brahmin, Kurma. And that instruction is that one should stay at home, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and preach the instructions of Krishna as they are given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Then, next verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further advised the Brahmin that if you follow this instruction, your materialistic life at home will not obstruct your spiritual advancement. Indeed, if you follow these regulative principles, we will meet again, or rather, you will never lose my company. If one lives with a spiritual ideal, then the material energy that cannot touch him. Prabhupada explains, this is an opportunity for everyone. If one simply follows the instructions of Lord Chaitanya under the guidance of his representative and chants the Hare Krishna mantra and teaching everyone as far as possible the same principle, then the contamination of materialistic life will not even touch him. And it doesn't matter whether one lives in a holy place like Vrindavan, or Navadvip, or Jagannath Puri, or in the midst of European cities, where materialistic way of life is very prominent. If a devotee follows the instructions of Lord Chaitanya, then he is living in the company of the Lord. So what needs to happen is just our life needs to be adjusted. Here Prabhupada says it doesn't even have to move to a holy place in India. Right here in France, or anywhere. That's why Prabhupada, when he came here, he named this place New Mayapur. Mayapur is the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya in India. But Prabhupada named this place New Mayapur. In America, he named the place New Vrindavan, and New Jagannath Puri. He was creating holy places. So, this is a holy place. Here, the worship of Krishna, according to the regulations given in the scriptures, is going on here. So, Prabhupada is making it easy for everybody. There are temples all around the world. When Prabhupada came, there were no temples outside of India. Prabhupada went to Russia just for a few days. There were no temples, there were no devotees. Prabhupada initiated one young man in Russia, and now there's like 5,000 Russian devotees and temples scattered all over Russia. By this principle of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, getting people to chant Hare Krishna mantra and follow the teachings given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So living as Prabhupada says here, living in the company of the Lord. Prabhupada has given a way of life where you can live in the company of the Lord. Anywhere. And influence of Kali Yuga will not touch you. Continue. At whoever's house Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted his meals, he would convert the dwellers in his Sankirtan movement and advise them just as he had advised the Brahmin named Kurma. On his tour of South India, he kept everyone he came in touch with, he transformed them into becoming devotees. And those people would then, he would instruct them, now you should also, everyone you meet, you tell them about Krishna. In this way, all over India, the influence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was happening. Prabhupada explains. The cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explained here very nicely. One who surrenders to him and is ready to follow him with heart and soul doesn't need to change his location, nor is it necessary for one to change his status. One may remain as a householder, a medical practitioner, an engineer, or whatever. It doesn't matter. One only has to follow the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chant Hare Krishna, chant Hare Krishna, and instruct one's relatives, friends in the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. One also has to learn humility and meekness at home. In this way, one's life will be spiritually successful. One should not try to artificially, be an artificially advanced devotee, thinking, I am a first-class devotee. Such thinking should be avoided. It is also best not to accept any disciples. One has to become purified at home by chanting Hare Krishna and preaching the principles enunciated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this way, one can become a spiritual master and be freed from the contamination of material life. Those who oppose the principles of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are committing offenses at his lotus feet. So to protect his preachers, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given so much clear advice in these few verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, based on these few instructions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to the Brahmin, Kurma, this movement is going on. That's what Prabhupada was doing, just teaching people to chant Hare Krishna and teaching them, giving them the teachings as given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And the society, the movement has grown. Now, practically any country in the world you go to, there are devotees there. So, of course, the majority of people are still not Krishna conscious, so there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do. And my work isn't finished, but I should then extend what I have got to the others so that they can become also fortunate. Therefore, there's always a push from within this strong movement to go out and preach, to go out and distribute the books of the Srila Prabhupada left, and to go out and chant. In this way, people are getting opportunity to begin their spiritual life. Okay, I've used up the time, so we can start. Is there any questions from anyone or comment? You have a question?
This verse about becoming a guru that Prabhupada was quoting,
Mm-hmm.
it means that, can we say that the people who are distributing this are some kind of small guru?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Doesn't necessarily mean you
Even
have
if
to
they're-
change your status, and become a, like he even says, you don't even have to take disciples. But anyone who is, if you're preaching, like many of our young devotees, so they're like spiritual masters. So there's a need for thousands of spiritual masters. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. When he instructed someone, some people would come from different parts of India, villages. He would preach to them and tell them, now you go back home, go back to your village and share what you've learned from me. And this way you become a guru. And this, it was like a revolution, a spiritual revolution. Yes, sir?
It's a question about preaching, because in the past and even now, preaching for some religion has brought war. And
Yeah.
how can we do for not
Well,
peace?
our preaching is based on the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So, in Bhagavad Gita you learn about ahimsa, non-violence. We don't endorse this slaughterhouse business. So, you're preaching, but you're preaching what? You're preaching what Krishna has taught. So,
How can we understand that Bhagavad Gita starts with a war?
very, very good question. I thought he was going to say that. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita was spoken on a battlefield. But Krishna is teaching on the battlefield because at that time the world was being many demoniac kings. And they had become a burden to the world. And so Krishna, you could say, orchestrated this war to lighten the burden of the world, of the earth. And he wanted to establish saintly rulers, saintly king. He wanted to establish Yudhishthira Maharaj as the emperor. Because when there's a saintly leader, then the whole society benefits. They are guided to making spiritual progress. But if the leader is godless, then everybody goes to hell. See? So yeah, many religions in the past, so many wars have been fought because of them. Yeah. The Christian religion, you had the Crusades, Crusades. Islamic, many wars have been fought by them.
Christian.
We are not advocating for war. So, Nityananda Prabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is said that they came, although Krishna says whenever when things get so bad, then I come to punish and remove all the bad elements, and I come and I re-establish the principle. So, paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya chaduskritam. So the same business is going on, but instead of killing people, we kill the demoniac mentality by preaching. We don't have a sword or a gun, but we preach and try to change their mentality. Let them give up the demoniac mentality. This is quite possible. Okay? Well, let's stop here and thank you very much. Take prashad. Haribo.
These guys, Agnideva Prabhu ki.
Yeah.